Hello everyone, I hope you are doing well today. In this video, we're discussing some of the highlights of the March monthly report, which came out yesterday. There's some awesome ship news today, and I think you're really going to enjoy some of it. Also, some nice updates to engineering and FPS scanning. Before we hop in, if you are enjoying the content, feel free to subscribe. I have memberships open if you'd like to go the extra mile, and feel free to hop into the community Discord. I will have a link for that in the description. We've just hit the 1,000 subscriber mark, and I simply cannot thank you all enough. So, without further ado, let's talk about some Star Citizen news. Now, all of these reports do start with a bunch of AI news. I'm actually not going to dive into that here, just simply because it's a little bit more difficult to understand. And I'd rather spend this time talking about some of the more exciting things that you guys want to listen to today. So, we're going to move on to the character art team. This team started working on a new creature for the PU, and they also started a brand new armor and continued making rewards. The team is also continuing with Starware debt per usual, which is always great to hear. I cannot wait for Starware. I think it's going to be such a fun feature to have in the game. Now, let's talk about ships. This is going to be an extremely nice ship update. First things first, the Starlancer TAC is in its final stages of development. I originally thought that this ship would release at Invictus, and this practically confirms that. The Consolidated Outlands Pioneer is also progressing through Whitebox. This ship certainly won't release anytime soon, but it's great to hear that they're actually working on this ship and, kind of getting it done. In other news as well, we have one new unannounced ship that was pushed to the Lot Zero phase, and two unannounced ships that were given bug fixing passes. These two will most likely be seen in the very near future as well. This also includes one more new ship that is going to Greybox very soon. We also have some news on the Perseus and the Apollo. The Apollo has passed its white box review and is now entering its gray box phase. The team received help from the concept team as well on the medical room design, which is good to hear. For the Perseus, this passed its white box review at the start of March. Now, I know some might be disappointed because this almost guarantees the fact that we won't see this thing flyable at Invictus, but this is still great news to see that they're getting this done. It's also worth noting that both of these ships have had significant help from the amount of RSI assets created within the last year. So it's good to know that at least the development is getting a bit accelerated for these two ships. Now, the last ships here is three unannounced ships continue development. One is apparently a variant of a popular ship, which has now passed its gray box review. Another variant is approaching gray box review, and one all new model is about to pass white box. Now, before we move on, let's just step back a little bit and summarize this, get it on screen for you because I know that was a lot of information. First things first, this is 10 ships we're talking about here, which is an absolutely crazy amount. First thing is the Starlancer attack is now confirmed to be releasing in the near future, most likely Invictus. Two other unannounced ships will also be looking at a release in the near future, with one not too far behind them as it has entered the Lot Zero phase, as well as one other ship that is about to enter Greybox in the near future. The RSI Apollo and Perseus are both entering gray box, which is fantastic news. The Pioneer has been progressing through white box. We have two new ship variants that apparently one of them is a very popular ship, so this variant might be something we're excited for. I'd love to hear your guesses down below. And the last thing is that there is one all new ship that is about to leave white box in the near future. Again, this is a ton of news. Basically, half of it is unannounced ships, and then the other half is, really exciting ships like the Apollo, Perseus, the Pioneer, which is crazy to hear about. But I hope you enjoyed that. I am super excited to hear about all of these, and honestly, I'm super excited to see the Starlancer attack in game. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that down below. But continuing on, we have reports from the core gameplay team, which has a couple good updates on engineering gameplay. First thing to mention is just talking about making sure that the resource network was supported for issues and bugs. They also added auto throttling, which reverts to a lower or powered off state if an item doesn't have power during an update. And then changes were made to vehicle coolant. Now, effectiveness is based on an item's physical properties, with a specific amount of coolant counteracting heating caused by an equal amount of power. Coolant consumption uses deltas with a dynamic override. The maximum coolant request is based on the maximum power consumption multiplied by a resource network global parameter. Now, I'm not going to pretend like that wasn't a little bit confusing because it certainly was. I think it's just written a little bit more technically. But the way I see it is it's just making the coolant system a little bit more physicalized and dynamic. basically giving you actual amounts of coolant that's being used based off of your power consumption and heat. Besides that, though, I can't really give you too much other than I think it's just an update to the coolant system and making it a little bit more depthful than it was previously. The team also made progress towards implementing heat gameplay for ship thrusters. This involved adding filters to the engineering UI to allow players to only see items of a particular category. For example, all weapons or all items with malfunctions. Selection improvements were also added to the new UI. Now, left click will cycle through the two closest items, useful for doors covering components, and right click will show all overlapping items and allow selection. To me personally, this simply seems like they're trying to get as many quality of life features into the system before it actually gets into our hands. It really feels like this engineering system is going to be like, you know, not a tier zero implementation. I think it will be pretty depthful the first time we get it. And I'm really excited about that. And based off of all the monthly reports, including this one, it really just sounds like they're making constant improvements to make sure that this system lands in our hands in a pretty solid format. Now, there's also some nice updates to FPS radar and scanning. Now, item components can be detected within vehicles while a player is inside and excluded when outside. The feature's debug tools were also improved too. I don't think there's too much to dive into here. It seems like they just don't want you seeing components when you're outside of a ship. That could be for HUD purposes, making sure there's not too much on your screen, or just simply balancing for some other reasons. Regardless, again, it's really nice to see that they're working on this feature. The last big thing here, and it's not that exciting, but it is really important, is the transit refactor. They don't talk about much here other than that they're really just continuing work on it. There's a few other technical things in there as well. Nothing too worth noting when it comes to the actual functionality of what's going on here. Regardless, I think all three of these things, the FPS radar and scanning, engineering, and the transit refactor are all really high requested. And I think hopefully we'll get them each this year. They're really important, especially the refactor. So I'm really hoping to see them sometime soon, but that goes for the core gameplay section. Now, to wrap up this news a little bit here, we're just going to summarize the last few teams. Firstly, we have some updates to Planet Tech V5. The main point mentioning how they have been finalizing the distribution and shading of denser rock formations, as well as the virtual terrain system getting closer to completion. Gas clouds have received some very nice visual updates, as well as global illumination receiving some as well. The last few things worth noting is dynamic weather received some updates. Rain volume calculation was improved, and there are a few updates to lightning, including the volumetric rendering and the local height of lightning events. And finally, there was some polish on fire, creatures, and networking bandwidth for damaged maps. Now, that is going to wrap it up for our summary of the March monthly report. I mainly wanted to get you some of those highlights of everything with the ships, engineering, and FPS scanning stuff. Some really exciting stuff there, but if you do want to check out some of the nitty gritty details, everything that they talked about in the article, I will have that link down below. It's certainly an interesting and fun read just to kind of check out everything that the developers are doing. Besides that, I want to hear your thoughts on all these ship updates as well. We heard about 10 whole ships the Starlink attack is releasing in the very near future, and I'm really curious as to what you think the unannounced variant of a popular ship is. For some reason, when I read that, it just kind of caught my eye, and I really kind of want to figure out what that ship would be. But overall, how are you feeling about this monthly report? Just generally engineering, FPS radar and scanning. It wasn't, nearly as filled out for across the board, but we got a lot of info on ships and a couple of these core gameplay things. So I think that's really exciting, and I'm super glad we are getting at least some updates right now. Again, thank you so much for being here and watching. 1,000 subscribers is a massive milestone for me, and I cannot thank you enough. I hope you know that your support does not go unnoticed. It means the world to me. Again, thank you so much for being here and watching till the end. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video.